Welcome to Mobile Math, math lessons on the go. Today's learning goal: by the end of this lesson, I should be able to subtract positive numbers using a column model. And again, this is without the use of a calculator or technology. Quick reminder, when we're asked to find the difference of two numbers, we're being asked to subtract or take away one number from the other. So difference, subtract, take away all have very similar meaning. Let's do a quick refresher of the column model for addition. So when we are asked to find the sum of 34 plus 18, when I look at the ones column and I add them together, I get a total of 12. But I'm going to keep track of the extra tens we have formed by carrying over. So I have put this 1 on top of the tens column. So you'll notice if I drag this down here, there's the 12 that was formed. But I'm going to keep track of that extra 10 by putting it on top of the tens column, so that's called carryover. Now when I add up my tens column, I have 1 plus another 3 plus 1 more groups of 10 for a total of 5 groups of 10, and I have a sum of 52. So when we were adding, we carried over this direction. When we subtract, we're going to see we do things in the opposite direction. Find the difference of the following: 35 minus 24. So I'm going to use one of our number model strategies from previous videos where I'm going to look at, instead of subtracting a positive number, I'm going to think of that as adding a negative number. And if that's a little rusty, go back and watch some of the earlier videos. So I broke the 35 down into a 30 plus a 5. The negative 24 becomes a negative 20 plus a negative 4. I'm going to group some friendly numbers together in terms of tens and ones. So I can see that 30 plus negative 20 would leave me with a positive 10. And I can also see over here that 5 positives plus 4 negatives would leave me with a positive 1 for a final answer of 11. If I look at the column model for subtraction, instead of adding the ones column together, I'm going to subtract 4 from the 5. So if I subtract or take away 4 from 5, I am left with 1. And if I subtract or take away 2 groups of 10 from the 3 groups of 10, I am left with 1. And you'll notice I get the same answer of 11 for both questions. Now there are some tricky parts to the column model, and we'll get into those now. So if I look at finding the difference of the following: 22 minus 7. So if I use my number model, I might break up the 22 into 20 plus 2, so I have some friendly numbers in tens and some ones. This might cause me a little bit of problems. And so I'm going to do this this question a little differently than I may have done in the past. I'm going to try and keep my numbers positive. So I'm going to try and find results that always end up being positive. If I tried to add 7 negative chips, or 7 negative ones to 2 positive ones, I would end up with a negative 5. And we do know how to do that, and if that's your preferred method, by all means. But I'm going to try and do this one a little differently so you can see how it connects to the column model. So what I want to try and do is I want to make this 2 a little bit larger. I want it to be greater than the 7. So when I add those negatives together, I'm going to end up with a positive number. So I'm going to borrow or break down this 20 at the beginning into 2 groups of 10. And then I'm going to combine this 10 plus 2 to make a 12. So now when I combine 12 positive ones plus 7 negative ones, I end up with a positive result versus a negative result. And when I add the 10 plus 5 together, I get a result of 15. Now, why do I want to do that? Well, it's because I want you to be able to see where things come from in the column model. Right now, if I tried to take away 7 from 2, I would end up with a negative number, and I would like to try and avoid that. So here's how we're going to use the carryover method from addition, but we're going to do it in reverse. So I am going to borrow one group of 10 from the tens column. So I will rewrite this 2 as a 1, and I'm going to borrow or bring back that group of 10 to turn my 2 into a 12. Now you can see here that, I'm just going to highlight them for you, that 12 is the same as this 12 right here. So now when I take away 7 from 12, I end up with the positive 5 that I was looking for. And now if I look in my ones column, my tens column, I only have one group of 10, and I end up with 15. So let's try the same approach with some larger numbers. I want to find the difference of the following: 45 minus 28. So I've done a number model here again. I've broken it down in a very particular way to help illustrate what's going to happen in the column model. So if you want to take a moment and look at that, we'll see that the final answer is a 17, and I will come back and highlight some of those elements for you. If we look at the column model, right away I can see if I take away 8 from 5, I'm going to end up with a negative number, so I would like to avoid that if I can. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to borrow one group of 10 from this 4 groups of 10 on the top from the 40, so this will become a 3 on top, and I'm going to borrow and bring back that group of 10. So now when I look at the ones column, I have 15 take away 8, or 7, and if you'll notice, that piece is right here. When I look at the tens column, I have 3 groups of 10 minus 2 groups of 10, or 30 minus 20. So when I subtract those, I end up with 1 group of 10, and you'll notice that that 30 minus 20, or 30 plus negative 20, is shown right there. So both the number model and column model will work. There are a few more challenges with the column model, but it can be very efficient and effective. Let's try some really big numbers, and we'll start to see why the column model can be a very valuable tool for us to have. I have the number model here broken up into 100s, 10s, and 1s. I've moved some terms around. You can see there's quite a bit of writing there. And again, I'm going to highlight a few key parts in the second last line or third last line. The total we get is 355. So I'm going to start with my column model. And again, I have a potential negative number being created in the ones column. So I am going to borrow 1 from the tens column, and I will bring that 1 over. So now I have 12 minus 7 in the ones column, so that would be 5. Whoa, here's a challenge though. When I hit the tens column, I have the same thing where I'm going to end up with a negative number being a result. So I am going to borrow from the hundreds column this time and bring 1 over. So now I have 13 groups of 10 minus 8 groups of 10, which is 5 groups of 10. And then lastly, when I look at my 100s column, I have 6 groups of 100 minus 3 groups of 100, which is 3 groups of 100. And you'll notice I get the same 355 for both answers. I will point out this piece right here. This 12 minus 7, there it is. This 13 minus 8, or really 130 minus 80, there it is. And lastly, the 6 minus 3 in the 100s column, or 600 minus 300, that's this piece right here. There it is in the number model. So we can see where all the pieces come from. As we get more comfortable, you'll start to find that the column model is really effective and very quick. Okay, so if you could press pause on the video and try the following. Find the difference for the following 2 questions. So please press pause now. Okay, welcome back. So let's try this with the column model. So right away, I can see in the ones column for the first question that if I subtract 7 from 1, I'm going to end up with a negative number. So I am going to borrow 1 group of 10 from the 6 up here. I'm going to create my 11 in the ones column on the top. So now I have 11 minus 7. I end up with 4 in the ones column. Then I'm looking in my tens column. I have 5 groups of 10 minus 2 groups of 10. And I'm left with 3 groups of 10, or a final answer of 34. I'll start my second question here. Again, I have a problem where if I subtract 9 from 4, I'm going to end up with a negative number on the bottom, and I'd like to try to avoid that. So I'm going to borrow 1 from the tens column, and I'm left with 0 tens, okay, on the top value, and that's okay. We're going to deal with that in a minute. So that turns my 4 ones in the top to a 14. So 14 minus 9 gives me 5. Now I may have to borrow from the hundreds column here, and that's okay. So I'm going to borrow 1 group of 100, which will turn my 0 tens into 10 groups of 10. So now when I subtract 10 minus 8, I'm left with 2 groups of 10. And then lastly, I have 2 groups of 100 minus 2 groups of 100. They cancel or are 0. So there are no groups of 100. And we would just write that as a straight answer of 25. Thank you for watching. Please watch again and pause where you may have had difficulties. And good luck in your future math problems.